Before Australia was a place on a map, it was just an idea, a kind of phantom landmass, a whisper of a great southern world at the very bottom of the globe. This is the story of how that idea, that myth, became a real place. This is the unveiling of a continent.
So, where did the name Australia even come from? Well, it actually came from a simple desire for harmony. Captain Matthew Flinders, the first person to sail all the way around the continent, suggested it back in 1814. He thought the name just sounded right, more agreeable to the ear, as he put it. It just fit in perfectly with Asia, Africa, and America. He wanted it to sound like it always belonged on the world map. And just like that, the name was born.
To really understand this place, we have to go back, way back. Back to a time before any charts or maps, to when Australia was just a myth that haunted mapmakers for centuries.
For hundreds of years, and this goes all the way back to the Roman Empire, geographers just believed there had to be a giant southern land. Why? To balance out all the continents in the north. It sounds kind of funny now, but it was a serious theory. They called it Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land. It was this ghost on the map, a place of pure guesswork, but a fiction they felt was necessary to keep their world in perfect balance.
And then, finally, the myth met reality. And what a reality it was. We're talking about a place of almost unimaginable scale. At nearly 7.7 million square kilometers, Australia is the world's sixth largest country. It's an entire continent and a nation all in one, covering about 5% of all the land on Earth. But its size is really just the beginning of the story. This is a land of incredible extremes. Geologically, it's the oldest and flattest of all the continents. Its heart is this massive, dry expanse of desert. But then, its coast is fringed by the Great Barrier Reef, the largest living thing on the entire planet. And get this, it's so geologically stable that Australia is the only continent that has 0 active volcanoes on its mainland. This ancient geology holds an equally ancient human story, one that's written in footprints left tens and tens of thousands of years ago. The depth of human history here is just staggering. I mean, we are talking about the world's oldest living cultures. The first people showed up at least 60,000 years ago. To do that, they had to cross open water, making them the earliest known seafarers in human history. The tradition of rock art here, it's the oldest continuous one on Earth, a story that's been painted on stone for 30,000 years. It's just incredible. And then, around 10,000 years ago, as the last ice age thawed, the seas rose and cut off Tasmania, isolating its people for thousands of years. Then, in what amounts to a geological blink of an eye, everything changed. A brand new chapter began, one marked by tall ships and the turbulent, often messy, birth of a modern nation. Now, Europeans had bumped into the continent before, but those early encounters were completely different. In 1606, a Dutch explorer named Willem Janszoon landed, called the place New Holland, but he didn't see much he liked, so he just sailed away. It was a fleeting visit. But over 160 years later, when Britain's Captain James Cook arrived and charted the fertile eastern coast, he claimed the whole thing for Britain. This wasn't just a visit. This was the start of a permanent disruptive transformation that began with the founding of a remote prison colony at the absolute end of the Earth. And from that one single penal colony, a nation started to take shape, piece by piece. It all kicked off in 1788, when the first fleet arrived and established New South Wales. Then, over the next 70 years or so, as more settlers spread out, other colonies were carved out: Tasmania, Victoria, Queensland. And finally, on January 1st, 1901, these separate British colonies all agreed to unite, officially forming the Federated Commonwealth of Australia. So what does it actually mean to build a modern country on this ancient, isolated continent? Let's take a look at what life is really like at the edge of the world. This really shows one of the biggest paradoxes about Australia. It's this vast, mostly empty continent, but its population is incredibly urbanized. The huge majority of its 27 million people live hugged to the coastlines, especially in the southeast. In fact, if you just take the 2 biggest cities, Sydney and Melbourne, their combined population is around 10 million people. That's more than a third of the entire country, all clustered together on the edge of this enormous landmass. And here's the thing. Despite its harsh interior and its remote location, this coastal-dwelling nation has built an incredibly high standard of living. It consistently ranks right up there with the best in the world on the Human Development Index. That's a measure of health, education, and income. Right now, it's sitting at 7th in the world.
A huge piece of that modern success story is immigration. After World War II, a massive program brought in millions of people, mostly from Europe. But the country's identity was truly reshaped in the 1970s when they finally dismantled the racially based white Australia policy. That was a pivotal moment. It opened the doors to Asian immigration for the first time, and it fundamentally changed the country from a remote British outpost into one of the most multicultural societies on the planet. Today, more than a quarter of all Australians were actually born somewhere else, creating this vibrant nation with communities from every corner of the globe.
Okay, so what's powering this prosperous remote nation? And more importantly, where is it all headed? Let's explore Australia's role as a continent of the future.
The sheer scale of the continent's natural wealth is, well, staggering. Australia is quite simply a resource superpower. It's the world's #1 producer of bauxite and iron ore. It's the second largest for gold, and it holds about a third of the entire world's known uranium reserves. For decades, this incredible gift from the ground has been the absolute bedrock of its economic strength. But here's the twist. The numbers today tell a much more complex story. See, even though it's a mining giant, mining itself only makes up about 5% of the national economy. The modern reality is that Australia is overwhelmingly driven by its services sector. We're talking finance, healthcare, education, tourism. That whole part of the economy accounts for nearly 70% of everything. It's become this highly sophisticated, knowledge-based economy that's built on top of that ancient foundation of natural resources.
So we're left with this fascinating picture, right? An ancient land, one of the oldest on Earth, home to the oldest continuous cultures. But at the same time, it's a young, dynamic, and constantly changing nation, a country defined by its vast emptiness and its vibrant multicultural cities. It really makes you wonder, for a nation forged from myth, geology, and waves of humanity, what on earth will its next chapter look like?